Something as simple as Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
What's the fucking point of contention?
Well, Willie, there is 0 point of contention regarding the concept or phrase Black Lives Matter. Nearly every American agrees with that. There is no point of contention with the concept. The pushback is on the organization. Welcome to Media Decoded, a channel dedicated to exposing the lies of the mainstream media, Hollywood, big tech, and our politicians. If you like this type of content, I ask that you please like, comment, subscribe, and share, because YouTube will never help me carry this message. Instead, they will try to stifle it. So without further ado, I welcome you to Media Decoded.
Something as simple as Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
What's the fucking point of contention?
Well, as I said, there is no point of contention regarding the concept. The pushback is on the organization, which is actually destroying Black lives. Just because it's called Black Lives Matter doesn't make the organization and the movement a good one. In fact, its entire foundation is based on a lie. A false narrative pushed by the media for a political agenda which propagates the myth that blacks are targeted by police. This when all the data proves otherwise. But so few do their homework to find the truth. More whites are killed than blacks by police, unarmed as well as armed. So if a bell rang every time a cop took a life, it is 2 times more likely when you heard that bell that a white person died than a black person. But you don't hear that on the news, do you? Sure, there are more whites in the population, but blacks actually commit far more violent crime. Not per capita, or not by percentage, raw data. But when you want to talk about capita or percentage, it gets even worse, because blacks, who are only 13% of the population, are committing nearly 60% of the homicides. Yet whites are killed more by cops. Go figure. Furthermore, the false narrative does 2 things which destroy the black community. First, it propagates a victim mentality, thereby enslaving the minds who follow it, robbing them of their full potential. Secondly, it creates an anti-cop sentiment, which increases tension between the black community and the police, which causes more violence and more death.
Yeah.
What's the fucking point of contention, right? The point of contention is that's not what the person's hearing.
Right. That's not what people are hearing. Because even though those words seem right and virtuous, the organization doesn't actually stand for Black lives at all. The proof of this is their complete lack of concern or regard for the fact that when they start marching, blacks start dying. As well, it stands for the dismantling of our great society, a society that has offered more freedom and civil liberties than any other in history. Western civilization has changed the world for the better, while the organization Black Lives Matter stands for moving away from Western culture, the nuclear family, and everything that would actually help black lives. And to top it all off, as we mentioned earlier, via the statistics, it's based on a complete lie. So of course, when any educated person in today's world hears the phrase, rather than think about the concept as being a good one, they think about all the death and destruction the organization has caused. It's pretty damn simple, actually.
Right? So that's where communication rules come in very handy. Here's what the answer is when someone says Black Lives Matter. Yes,
Yeah.
I agree.
Wait, what? What communication rules are you talking about? I talk and you blindly agree with what I say? Correct me if I'm wrong, but any therapist will tell you this is exactly not how to properly communicate. Communication rules require both parties to listen, not one party to jam a concept down another's throat and be pissed off unless there's anything other than total subservience and total capitulation. In fact, good communication rules would dictate that both parties educate themselves regarding a topic before even discussing it, which is something this knucklehead obviously did not do. More concerned with social media clout than actual black lives, men like Wet Willie are unintentionally aiding in the oppression of the black community and the death of more black children.
Here's what the answer is when someone says Black Lives Matter. Yes, I agree. Black Lives Matter.
And this simplistic and idiotic view proves my point. The organization and the movement have hijacked this phrase. And what Wet Willie is propagating is that because the phrase is virtuous, therefore the movement and organization must be too. If you think like this, you are honestly a mental midget. The name of the organization, no matter how virtuous it sounds, has zero to do with the virtuosity of the organization.
But when you get out there, for somebody to respond, all lives matter.
Blue lives matter.
Blue lives matter. It's like,
well, that's because all lives do matter. Blue lives matter. Countless completely innocent cops who have spent their lives helping people and risking themselves have been assassinated in the name of the Black Lives Matter movement, a movement based on a lie. As I said before, a movement that raises the tension between blacks and cops, which wouldn't be there if they accurately reported the number of white deaths by cop. But by falsely claiming that it's blacks that are targeted, they create this tension, which leads to killings. White, black, and blue. There are no winners here.
Yeah, but there's something else too. Slave mentality isn't just something that black people carry. Mentality about enslaved persons could also be about the way that you see a life, the value of a life. Part of that argument is I'm going to push back because I don't even want to address that.
But that's not the argument at all. The argument against Black Lives Matter is what I've been telling you. Black Lives Matter is directly causing innocent black deaths, as well as enslaving them via propagating a victim mentality. That's why there's pushback on this organization. Have you not seen the barrage of blacks coming out against this movement? Good for them.
The conversation around Breonna Taylor's death, the conversations around George Floyd, the countless other people who didn't have a video or didn't have a hashtag. I was going through and reading stories of people who didn't go viral. There's a laundry list of their criminal record.
You looked up people that didn't go viral? You mean like every single white person that's ever been killed by cops? Many of which had no criminal record at all? Did you read about those people? You know, the group that has had twice as many people die at the hands of police? Oh, no, of course you didn't. You only looked up black people. And then self-admittedly, you tout that nearly all of them had a lengthy criminal record. This is just too rich. Unbelievable.
All of that diminishes their humanity. By the time you get to the page, you're like, shit, of course they got shit. You know what I mean? Like, it gets you to the point where you justify their particular life doesn't matter. Over time, that math says that there's a whole bunch of black lives that don't matter.
Actually, the math says there are twice as many white lives that don't matter. But I guess you either failed to research that or just don't care yourself. At the end of the day, most police killings are justified. Very few are not. In cases where it is not, we want full accountability and prosecution. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen for whites or black victims. More often for whites, by the way. So things do need to change. But the police culture needing to change has zero to do with race. But unfortunately, that's not what Black Lives Matter is talking about. And it's not the effect of Black Lives Matter. The effect of Black Lives Matter is clearly more anarchy, more killings in the black communities, more cop killings, and more racial tension. Good job. I'll tell you, these two are quite a tandem. We got some real big brain people here. Some real big brain people. I mean, the insight that is flowing in this conversation is just, oh my, it's profound. Anyway, so let me explain what's happening here with these Hollywood elites like Wet Willie. You see, when you're so filthy rich and famous, there tends to come with that a little guilt. So it's really human nature to try to compensate by taking stances which they believe are virtuous on all positions, like wanting massive illegal immigration, to understanding the riots and not speaking out against them. You see, real people have to make real decisions. tough ones. Mass illegal immigration affects the poor disproportionately in myriad ways. It introduces many non-English speaking students into classrooms, making it difficult for teachers to teach curriculum to Americans, many of which who are already struggling and need attention themselves. It also drives down wages for the lowest end workers. In both cases, it is our poorest communities that are affected most. As well, the riots that Black Lives Matter have spearheaded, again, affecting the most vulnerable communities. In all of these instances, people like Will Smith remain completely unaffected. So it's easy for him to take the virtuous position we would all love to take. His kid goes to a private school. He's not concerned with low wages at the bottom end. It doesn't affect him. The riots, they aren't getting close to his gated community. So it's easy for him to sit back and take the most godlike position on every subject when he himself is not affected. Unfortunately for the rest of America, although we'd love to take these very righteous positions, they unfortunately have a very negative effect on our quality of life. I have a saying, be liberal when you can be, and conservative when you have to be. And like I said, unfortunately, most of America has to be conservative regarding many of these positions if they care about their family's well-being. Will Smith does not. Which leads him to making videos like this, which in effect expose him for how shallow his thinking is and how uncritically he thinks. The worst part of it all, though, is that he's influential, so what winds up happening is he hurts the communities he's trying to help most. I have no doubt that his intentions are good. Now, I've only tackled Hollywood here, the Hollywood elites. Now, there are other forces at work and for different reasons when it comes to supporting this BLM movement. Be sure that I will expose them in future videos, so I hope you stay tuned to this channel. Before I go, I want to touch on a point I hear being reverberated across the media again and again. Another false narrative which defends and justifies the senseless rioting that is leading to so many black deaths as well as the destruction of black communities. It's another example of how when the media puts forth a narrative, even though it's based on a lie, the people believe it, buy in, and repeat it. What I'm specifically referring to is Dr. Martin Luther King when he stated that rioting is the voice of the unheard. The media takes this quote out of context and uses it to fuel dissension and violence. While it's true that he said it is the language of the unheard, he didn't say it was the proper or correct language, simply that it was an unfortunate fact. The truth is Martin Luther King was steadfast in his belief that rioting was bad, spending his time trying to convince the oppressed communities that they were wrong in going about things that way. The black leaders of today, rather than taking the viewpoint of Dr. Martin Luther King, distort his message until it has the exact opposite meaning. He would be rolling in his grave. Let's take a look at the truth about Dr. King's view on rioting, shall we? Because you're not going to get it from the mainstream media. Or Al Sharpton, or Cornel West, or Jesse Jackson, or any of the black leaders of today.
I think we've got to see that a riot is the language of the unheard.
To justify the violent tactics of some of the protesters in the demonstrations that have swept the country over the past week, Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous line has been circulating once again. Last Saturday, King's own son posted it to Twitter. But that quote has been widely misinterpreted because it's taken out of context.
Nonviolence is the most potent weapon available to the Negro in his struggle for freedom and justice. I think for the Negro to turn to violence would be both impractical and immoral.
King sought to make his position crystal clear in his 1966 interview with 60 Minutes' Mike Wallace.
I would hope that we can avoid riots because riots are self-defeating and socially destructive.
Now let me ask you, doesn't this bother you that you've been lied to and misled? Well, I have news for you. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you are someone who parrots the mass media talking points, you will find that the deeper you dig, the more you will feel bamboozled, lied to, treated like you were an idiot. And once you come around to fully realizing this, you'll never believe anything you read or see again without doing your own research. Again, once you start doing this, the layers peel off like an onion. Your eyes open and the facts bear themselves. I invite any of you who are still parroting media lies and talking points to think critically about what you are seeing and hearing. I have no doubt that once you start, you won't stop. And in the end, you will be grateful for your newfound freedom. Well, that's all I got. I thank you so much for tuning in. Again, I ask that if you want to support content like this, that you please subscribe and share, like, comment, etc. I greatly appreciate you, and I hope that you enjoyed. Thank you again for tuning in to Media Decoded. Alrighty, let's let Bill O'Reilly take us out with a broadcast shot several years ago. And while you watch, ask yourself if any of this sounds familiar. Do we see a pattern here? We'll never learn.
Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. How Black Lives Matter is killing Americans. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. First, the stats, and they are stunning. Since the Ferguson chaos, murders in the USA's 50 largest cities are up close to 17%, and much higher in cities with large black populations. In Chicago, for example, this year alone, shootings up around 80%. Why? Because the Chicago police have stopped stopping suspicious people. So-called pedestrian stops are down 90% in the Windy City. When you fail to police proactively, people commit more crimes. The media will not spotlight that much of the violent crime in America is being committed right now by young black men. In fact, black males between the ages of 14 and 17 commit homicide at a rate 10 times higher than white and Hispanic male teenagers combined.